So I've noticed within the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 months now, that there are a lot of people that are transitioning from Dungeons and Dragons over to other tabletop RPGs, which I think is great. I think it's great to explore your options and get a feel for other tabletop RPGs. I've always had an issue with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition myself anyway, not necessarily because it's a bad system, but it is a very limiting system. Something that to one degree, I think is a good system for people who have never played tabletop RPGs before to get a taste or a feel for them. But coming from somebody who's came from Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, I mean, there's a reason I went to Pathfinder when Dungeons and Dragons went to 4th edition, and I just kind of stuck with Pathfinder since. And it's just because there's just so many options available. Of course, when Starfinder first came out, and then when Pathfinder 2nd edition first came out, of course, we were only limited to what the base rules had. However, over time, as more and more books came out and there were more and more third-party options to choose from, we got more variety, more options, more choices so that we could make our unique character that most likely other people haven't created before. And that, I think, is the beauty of what I enjoy a lot about Pathfinder. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that too from those that are transitioning from Dungeons and Dragons, but with a lot of options does come with a bit of paralysis choicing, or choice paralysis, I think I should say. I mean, it is a lot easier to just choose whether you want vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream compared to Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors. And I think with a lot of options available, it causes people to have this sort of psychological resistance to change. There's just too many choices to be had. There's too many actions. You can freely do whatever you like with. There's a lot of classes. There's a lot of spells and a lot of magic items that you can equip to your characters. And there's no, well, I was supposed to say no limit. There's to an extent a limit to magic items, but generally speaking, you can create and have as much flexibility as you'd like for your character that makes yours a bit more unique. I understand where the resistance to change kind of comes from, but when you try to keep things the way they used to be, you kind of come off as somebody who's stuck in their old ways. So I'm going to go over a couple of examples that I saw on Reddit that were alarming, that at least caught my attention. One was the rules variant, Reactive Strike for everyone, or Attack of Opportunity for everyone. Pathfinder is built with the perspective of giving you the options to strike and have tactical movements. No longer are you just stuck in one place, it's striking and bashing at somebody time and time and time again. It's very repetitive, very old, and I like how Pathfinder provides various options to your actions. You're no longer stuck. Pathfinder, I think, takes combat a little bit more realistically with maneuvering around. I mean, I guess on occasion, when you're, I don't know, grappled, or I guess in a moment or two you could be stuck in one place. But when you reference like wrestling or any sort of action movie, people aren't standing in one place all the time just bashing each other left and right. People are moving around. They're trying to get into a tactical position while striking you. And I think with Pathfinder, removing reactive strike or attack of opportunity, depending on how you look at it, by maybe not removing it, but by limiting it, it allows for that tactical freedom to maneuver around as you need. Additionally, Pathfinder Remastered does have a lot of various reactions that allows for more than just attack of opportunity or reactive strike. You've got like nimble dodge, for example. You've got champions that have a lot of defensive reactions. There's also a lot of monsters that have different unique reactions that are based on what they can do or built around. It's adds a lot of versatility. And talking about monsters, man, I love that there is a lot of versatility on how a monster is ran. Every single monster has, in my perspective, a unique way of how they go about with combat. You don't have 95% of them stuck with just multi-attack. Sorry, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but I've at least looked at the bestiary once. And, I knew how limiting the players were because I've been a player before, but I've looked at the bestiary once before, the monster manual, and man, monsters are so limited. They're so, I don't know, bread and butter, just multi-attack all the time, across the board. I'm not going to rant on Dungeons & Dragons any longer. This is about people transitioning into the Pathfinder. So, with these weird house rules. So, if you really want Reactive Strike for everybody, I guess that's okay. However, I've seen worse on Reddit. Game Master only allows 2 actions? What in Sarenrae is that? As bad as the Reactive Strike for everyone is, at least that's, in the way of looking at it, doable. You can deal with that, but 2 actions completely breaks the game. That definitely shows, in my perspective, that the person is stuck with their standard action, move action mindset. Pathfinder is built for you to use 3 actions in any way you want. You can use those 3 actions for tactical purposes, to move around as you need, to interact with items. You can technically strike 3 times if you want. It's usually discouraged. I think a lot of people make that mistake when they first go into Pathfinder. I know we kind of did when we first got into Pathfinder 2nd edition. I think it's inevitable for everyone just kind of swing 3 times, but you do also kind of learn over time. I mean, even as the game master, I made that mistake of just kind of just swinging. And while I might still do that for some, I guess I would say, sort of like fodder, like, enemies, generally speaking, they're only striking once, maybe twice if their stats are arguably works around that, or there's something going on in the battle that supports the decision to strike a second time. But otherwise, you really want to only strike once and do what you need to do to maneuver around, drink a potion, whatever you need to do to get yourself still standing in the fight and ready for the next attack. So I can't really fathom just how breaking it into just 2 actions could really work. You have some abilities that force you to use 3 actions. So how do you resolve that? I don't know. The more I try to question that, the more questions I get. So I don't really want to think about it too much. But 2 action economy, terrible. That's a terrible idea for anybody to do that. If you have a game master insisting on that, try to get them to just play Pathfinder 1st edition instead, maybe, or go back to Dungeons & Dragons, or just any other edition, because it just doesn't work for Pathfinder Remastered. So I may have been talking really dirty about people using terrible house rules or variants. I want to go on the record to say that I like variants. Generally speaking, they're fine. If anything, I'm used to seeing variants that I just simply don't agree with, for the simple fact that it just doesn't work for my team, or it doesn't work for my group. I guess we are a team, I suppose, of story crafters or storytellers, but generally speaking, rule variants are fine. Homebrewed rules, house rules, whatever you want to call them, they're cool with me. There's one that I use that's straight from the Game Master core, which is the free archetype. You can choose to have an archetype feat every even level. There's a couple of exceptions or restrictions to it, but generally speaking, you can look at it yourself to see for yourself how it works. And I think it works great for the team. It gives them a little bit more flexibility. I think archetypes do help sort of zone in a little bit more on what the players are building their character around, such as, I think a good example would be, a ranger that's really honed in on their animal companion. They could, create a beastmaster, or just anybody really. If any class out there really wanted an animal companion, go ahead and be a beastmaster. So that way you can get yourself, a pet bear or alligator or whatever. And I think it also allows you to choose some archetypes that might go out of the norm of combative choices or options, especially from my group's perspective, being a much more roleplay heavy game. Choosing something like the dandy or the celebrity as a couple of archetypes, are a bit more appealing. And while it may seem less intuitive for probably the average group, I think it's actually awesome that Pathfinder has provided some options for the role-playing elements. And talking about the Game Master's core, if you just go to page 82, there is a good list of various options you could do to add some more flexibility or some more options for the players or yourself, or maybe make the rules a little bit more simplified. That might be better for your group. I do think variants are needed. I do think that house rules are needed for each group, because not everybody plays Pathfinder the same way. Not everybody likes one specific way on how to play. I think allowing various options is what also allows video games to become so successful or popular, like Disco's Elysium, Skyrim. I could go on a list of various games that have that allow you to have different experiences classes through multiple runs, and that is beautiful, I think. So I don't want you to be discouraged to make any house rules, but at the same time, I would try to at least play the game, the base rules as it is, for at least a little while, and at least get a feel for why Pathfinder plays the way that it's supposed to be played to an extent, of course. I guess I sort of feel like I'm being counterintuitive by saying variants are okay, but also play by the base rules of Pathfinder. So I hope I'm making sense in this, but if I'm not, then, well, oh well, you just ignore my rambling. But generally the point I'm trying to make is play Pathfinder for at least a little bit, the base rules as it is. Try it out for a little while. Use like maybe the beginner's box, or run a one-shot. And on top of that, I think as a suggestion, I would give the players an allowance to make any adjustments that they want on their characters for at least the first couple of levels. That's what I did for Starfinder when we've all transitioned to Starfinder, and then when we all transitioned again into second edition, is that I allowed my players for the first 3 levels that if they want to make any changes, they're welcome to do so, and we'll say that everything was canon, I guess. If they were a Yusoki and then they became an android, well, we'll just say they were an android the whole time, and they were never Yusoki, and that was just a figment of people's imaginations. When everybody has not played the game before, being forced to commit to something can be really rough when you don't know how a game is supposed to be played, and you're not familiar with, I guess, what your table's meta is going to be about. If you've played the game for a long time and somebody's being introduced into your group, then I can definitely see where maybe you can offer some suggestions and help the player mold their character to the best to their ability, and you may not need to allow that option of flexibility. I think having that rule was really helpful with my group. I think it helped them be able to make choices without feeling like they were hard commits, knowing that they could make a change anytime they want if they thought a combo would work and then it didn't, or they tried to go one path, or they chose maybe one spell in their book, in their spell book. They didn't like that, so they wanted to choose something else. I think that's totally acceptable for at least a little while. I mean, inevitably you have to put a close to that, and that's where I at least let them know that, okay, after 3 levels, then you gotta commit. And I can at least say there's only ever been one change that was ever made. Nobody made any changes at all in Starfinder, but when I did offer that with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there was somebody that made an archetype change. I can't say that that sort of flexibility should be allowed necessarily. I think it helps with that choice paralysis, with that uncertainty, but each group's different, and you might have some groups that may take advantage of that system or something like that, and you as a game master may not like the idea of people having that flexibility in the beginning. And so it's just simply a suggestion, not something that I necessarily say that everybody has to do, but having that flexibility, I think, helps make everybody feel a little bit more comfortable, and have a bit more fun playing the game, instead of worrying over, oh man, I made such a terrible choice, now my character sucks, or something like that. So because I don't want anybody to, in my group anyway, to feel like they're playing a bad character that they're now stuck playing for the next 6 months or a year or 2 years or however long their character survives. We don't need anybody feeling suicidal just so they can create a new character. I don't need depression to all of a sudden be some sort of filter over my game. So at least end with that. I'm glad more and more people are taking up Pathfinder. I hope that if you're picking up Pathfinder Remastered for the first time, or you're relatively new to the game, that you are enjoying it and that you're having fun, that you're asking the right questions. Like, I think this Redditor, for example, asked a brilliant question of, hey, I transitioned from 5th editions to Pathfinder Remastered. What are some suggestions you got? I think those are great questions to ask. A lot of people will be able to answer those questions for you that have a love for the community and the game. I'm a bit more of a lurker. I just look at all that stuff. I don't reply to any of that. I've just been a dedicated lurker for, I think, 4 years now. So talking to you in the camera is probably the only thing internet related that I do that's external. Otherwise, when it comes to the internet, I'm pretty internal of a person, I guess. I don't know. Now, if you agree or disagree with any of the comments that I've made here, feel free to express your opinion down below. I'm curious to know if there's a lot of people out there that maybe have a completely different perspective, that maybe two actions is the way we're supposed to go. I'm almost, I mean, I'll admit the two action thing is bothered me enough to where I wanted to create this video. That's what started. So, but yeah, I think it's bothered me enough to where like I almost kind of want to do like a what if Pathfinder thing, just to see. So I don't know. It's almost it baffles my mind enough to make it just makes me, I don't know, like lose my mind a little bit on it. I mean, just the more I'm thinking about it, the more just kind of crazy I feel I'm getting. So, I mean, maybe we should just make everything one action. Maybe we're just asking too much. We just make everything just a single action, and that's it. That way, players can just do one thing at a time. They don't have to think about two things at a time. Because, I mean, 3 things at a time is just way too much. You're asking the players to do way too many things.